Viewers, the world is watching the SCO Summit closely as it has the potential to herald a new world order. Some of the world's most powerful and fastest growing economies have come together for this particular meeting, no doubt. The troika of India, China and Russia remains center stage, coming amidst the childish tantrums and inexplicable volatility from the United States. This meeting of world leaders isn't just about regional security. It's a statement against U.S. dominance, and there's a reason why the U.S. has been jittery about the meeting. Even before his visit to China, Vladimir Putin made the roadmap clear. The Russian president has emphasized on the need for a reformed global financial system under BRICS. In a hint towards de-dollarization, he's rejected what he termed as the West's use of finance as a tool of neo-colonialism. Putin also mentioned tariffs, saying that there is a need to have a common stand against discriminatory sanctions that hinder development of BRICS members and the world. He's also called on reforming IMF and the World Bank. Let's take a quick look at this new axis and what it really means. This is, of course, what Vladimir Putin has said, the Russian president. He's talked about being united in strengthening BRICS. What's the pitch as far as the financial system that he's talking about? He's talking about expanding economic opportunities for member states with this new system, creation of common platforms in strategic sectors, common stand against discriminatory sanctions and sanctions that hinder development of BRICS members and the world. Russia and China support reforming IMF and the World Bank is also what is stated. A new financial system must be built. Equal and non-discriminatory access to all countries has to be given. Also goes on to add that it must reflect real standing of countries in the global economy. This is, of course, the pitch as far as Russia is concerned when it comes to new financial system is concerned. But why is all of this happening? Why is this pitch coming in from Putin? Very clearly, this de-dollarization rhetoric has also, of course, seen some reactions coming in from the United States because the SWIFT platform that is currently being used is dollar-dominated is the perspective. 90% of world trade is in the US dollar and nearly 100% of oil trading in dollars at least until 2023. The oil trading in the non-dollar aspect has only gone to about 20% since 2023. Let's quickly take this across to my colleague Swati, who's joining us as well. Swati, this is very significant to look at. As BRICS comes together, one of the worst fears of the United States is that the dollar will lose its significance and that it will be other currencies such as what Russia is pushing for, given their own recent troubles following, of course, the Ukraine war and, of course, the sanctions that we've seen coming in from the West, particularly the United States, that it has had to suffer from. They very clearly want to prevent that from happening again.
Well, yes, absolutely. You know, anything and everything that is going to challenge the dominance of America or the dominance of the West is something that has irked Donald Trump. Now, the almost trilateral that will be seen here during the SCO Summit, the coming together of India, Russia and China is half of your BRICS. So the moment BRICS gets strengthened or a platform like SCO is spoken about and you see unity in these countries, these issues are bound to irk Donald Trump. Remember the last time how Donald Trump responded to the successful organization of the BRICS Summit? Donald Trump at the moment is on a tirade of slamming and slapping tariff against all the countries that do not want to give him credit for either solving their internal issues or for brokering peace. For example, that happened with India, isn't it, Madhav? India's defiance is what has hurt Donald Trump and upset him so much that we saw the secondary sanctions. They call it tariff, but then their White House press secretary reveals that it is a sanction actually on India because India is doing trade with Russia. So on one hand, Donald Trump would meet Vladimir Putin in Alaska because he wants credit for brokering peace between Russia and Ukraine. That is not happening. That is far from over. But on the other hand, America wants to penalize India for doing trade with a long-term partner like Russia. And it's not like India is the largest importer of oil. The largest importer of oil, as we all know, is China. Donald Trump does not want at the moment, to challenge China or to counter China. So he keeps on giving waivers to China, but treats India differently. And then they admit on camera that, it's not really about India. It's about pressurizing Russia through India. He calls Narendra Modi a terrific leader, says India is our friend, but at the same time, you penalize your friend. So at the moment, Donald Trump, like I said, is irked because his dominance is being challenged, because the dominance of West is being challenged. While they are not able to keep their alliance intact, this Eurasian summit definitely is a reason or a big concern for Donald Trump.
Absolutely. In fact, stay with us, Swati. Let's quickly open this out to our guests as well who are joining us. I want to bring in Veena Sikri on this. Veena Sikri, while the relevance of the dollar may have fallen from its relative peak about 2 to 3 decades ago, the point is that still it is, of course, undoubtedly the biggest by a mile, international currency that is used as far as trade is concerned. How practical then are these suggestions of President Putin, and what will that really entail? Because the US itself will also have its own very sharp reactions to that, and we've seen those statements coming into that effect from President Trump as well.
Well, India has already spoken on this issue, and India has said that we are not part of any move for de-dollarization. But at the same time, India has made it clear that we are happy to trade in national currencies with a large number, increasingly large number of group of countries. And already I think we have whether it is a neighbor like Maldives or other countries in Africa, we have said very clearly we are happy to do swap trading in national currencies. And this, of course, in its own way, will dent the trading of the utilization of the dollar, and other countries are very happy to participate in this. So I think, but I must draw attention here to one other point, and I think that one of the aspects that seems to be, holding a huge importance with President Trump at the moment is that he is trying to conclude a deal with China. I think this is something that has been on his mind for a very long time, almost from the beginning of the process that he has been slapping these tariffs on every country. So in the interest of his doing this with China, this big deal that he wants to do with China, he is throwing every other countries under the bus. And we all know with China, for example, after their first bout of increasing tariffs enormously, there's now a waiver of tariffs, which was for 90 days and now another 90 days. So it is clear that in the first 90 days, the agreement that he sought that he would get with China, he has not been able to get, and another 90 days. And I think that even this attitude of seeming indifference towards Quad is part of this. Because we know that Quad is a matter of some concern to China. They think it's a gang up on China. So he's doing everything to soften up China and get a deal concluded with him, He's showing them that, telling China, look, I have Pakistan on my side, I have Bangladesh on my side. So all these are a lot of posturing that is going on. And I think only when this deal, if it is going to be concluded, I don't know, but only when he does this deal with China, which we know where we actually stand, because is he talking about a G2? Is he thinking about a G2 that he and China, USA and China are going to control the rest of the world? But we know that China has been using the technology now for the first time, has started using the terminology of multipolarity. When Foreign Minister Wang Yi was in India about 10 days ago, he said that there was a readout from Beijing on one of the meetings using the term multipolarity. But then the question arises, is China ready for multipolarity within Asia? Okay, multipolarity in the rest of the world is fine, but is China ready for multipolarity within Asia? Are they equal to, are they up to recognizing India as an equal pole of influence in Asia? And I think this is now the key question, and we agree are being worked out now between India and China, how the relationship will move forward. Both sides, President...
Will China be okay with giving India its share of space? That's a very important question indeed. But I want to bring in Tara Karta on the larger question. Tara Karta, how much of this, breaks coming in to take on the United States, how much of that is just rhetoric and just about optics and positioning, and how much of it can actually be translated into reality is a big question.
No, I do agree on this multipolarity. That's a huge thing. Whether they will give us, recognize this as a pole in Asia, that is, they've never done. But, if you look at the tariffs that US has imposed recently, it's on China's major trading partners. One of the times, in fact, Kazakhstan, they've said Kazakhstan is the worst offender, so they put 25% tariffs on Kazakhstan. Immediately, China responded by sending the NDRB, which is who the representatives are there on the table with Modi today. They said that we will now allow you to trade more with China. So trade tariffs against Vietnam, tariffs against Malaysia, against Indonesia. These are all things. Vietnam, especially China, is very concerned about that because the deal says that Vietnam cannot then transport trade from other countries out of its territory. So it's not, I think, that simple. That the G2 thing, while that is being talked about a lot, it ignores one fundamental aspect of US policy which is constant across presidencies, is that they will not brook competition. The US has to remain number one, and that is the basis of US policy. So I think China would be very well aware of that. They know what the background to this is.
Right. And in fact, let me bring in Ashok Sajanar on that. Ashok Sajanar, how much of this really do you see translating into action? Of course, the two countries coming together, a lot of positive signals there. But in terms of taking on the United States, is it just something that we're looking at as a temporary stage, given our ties with US that have, of course, been headed south for the last several weeks? And is that just a part of the bargaining process as far as tariffs are concerned, or is there something larger that's brewing here?
Okay, excellent question, Madhav. Let me put it in two ways. Number one, we want to have normal relations with China. We, of course, have good relations with Russia, but we do not wish to enter into an axis with China and Russia. You know, we don't want to get into, give this impression, and I think your title also, if you permit me to say so, I think it is rather India's new axis and an axis of three. I think it is a bit of a hyperbole in my view. It is embellishing, it is sort of, exaggerating. And I don't know, I would not like to give that message either to the West or to the United States, because they continue to be our good partners. And going forward, there have been so many ups and downs in 1998, 1971. We had so many problems with them, right? This is the first time in these 25 years it has come, but we will get over it. And if India wants to get up to Viksit Bharat 2047, we need technology, capital, market, support, etc. from there. China will not give you the market. Russia doesn't have the market. So, I think let us be very clear. This is no axis. And let us, make it very clear to the West also that India is not getting into the same bed with China and with Russia. No, India has its own interest in sorting out its border issue with China. Last point I'd like to make, Madhav, if you permit, is the question that you asked about BRICS coming together. Mr. Trump, by all his these very intemperate statements, rather than putting BRICS apart, he's really bringing the BRICS together. That having been said, BRICS cannot take a unified stand against Trump, because there are many elements, whether it's India, whether it's the United Arab Emirates, do you think whether it's Egypt, do you think these countries will come together to sort of, take up cudgels together for what? For giving China the leadership? No, I don't think that is a realistic proposition. De-dollarization is not a realistic proposition, at least in the short and the medium term. Long term, no one knows.
All right, but very respectfully disagree with you, Mr. Sajanar, on the point of view of the new axis that you commented. Very clearly, there's a shift happening. Whether this shift is permanent or whether it's temporary, we don't know. I'm certainly not going to wager a guess.
Axis is a very loaded word, Madhav. Axis is a very loaded word.
There's a word to be said about the optics and the pictures that are coming in from Tianjin.
Optics, I agree.
And this is clearly, it's clearly a paradigm shift, sir. It's clearly a paradigm shift. Let's agree to disagree there. But let me bring in Vail Awad on that note. Vail Awad, this whole business of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and all these countries coming together, to take on what's being said is the dominance of the dollar and the United States. But are you looking at this also from the perspective of the Middle East? Because, we have seen a situation where Russia and Iran in particular have been hugely disadvantaged by US sanctions in the past. How much of that past experience of these countries will be enough to drive the other countries towards such a project? Is it practical? Is a question that many are asking.
Well, Anaf, I believe in the Asian century, and I'm an Asian by nature and by blood and Indian by naturalization. I will tell you I'm not very optimistic on these issues, but I can tell you very clearly that the American dominance in the unilateral world has been, whether weathering out, whether we like it or no. America does not have the carrot, have only the stick, and using the bullying of nations does not serve, because we are seeing a multilateralism coming up, very much emerging. And I think the American weathering out, whether it is in Afghanistan, the sudden pullout, whether it is in the challenge within the Washington inside, whether it is the war, the trade war with China and with the rest of the world he created, this will bring together, as Ambassador Sajidar said, it will bring together there's a compulsion options for all the neighbors to come. BRICS and the Shanghai corporations have to come together. That's the only way you can put your voice together. And the American, we are not talking of axis. Actually, it is a natural extension, the north and south, from China to Russia to India, Iran. That is the nature we look at it. We do not see it. The South-North cooperation and rift has always been there. And I think India and China and the rest of BRICS can take the South voice to the rest of the North, and they can be addressing their issues without standing firm. This is a historic moment, whether we like it or no. We are just saying it because we know that we are at a very dangerous juncture in the Middle East, West Asia. We are heading again for another war. You see people sending the notion of a democratic world and against autocratic regimes. I think that notion has died. It is a civilization that we are talking about, and nobody better than India and China and Russia, the eldest civilization in the world, to come together and talk. I am sounding very optimistic. Yes, I am, and I will continue to be optimistic, because I have a full faith on those leadership that we can take on the American, take on the rest of the Western world who does not have money to buy. They have only gun to go and loot nations.
But how much of that optimism is shared by other panelists? Let's get in a quick response. Many smiles there that I'm seeing. Veena Sikri, would you like to respond? Are you as optimistic?
I think I would cast my answer in the context of India's own policy of strategic autonomy and multipolarity. So we will continue to work. We attach a lot of importance to the BRICS. We attach a lot of importance to our Prime Minister's meeting with President Putin tomorrow morning, as we did to the meeting with President Xi Jinping today. These are all in their own place, but I agree that each one has its own impact. But we are not like making this part of one big global thing that, what will feed into what, but we are doing this as building up these relationships on their own strength. And I think that itself is very important, because we are doing it on their own strength. We're not saying that one relationship is against A is against B, or the relationship of SCO is against some other country. No, we're doing it on its own strength, what is valuable. For example, in the SCO meeting, we attach a lot of importance to the issues against terrorism, the counter-terrorism, the separatism, the extremism. All those are very important issues for us, as are the question of civilization and people to people. So we will continue to deal with these independently. Of course, we will study the impact they have, but the coming together in itself is important. That itself speaks a lot, and countries draw their own conclusions from that, and that is what we are going to continue to do.
All right. Yeah.
Well, I'm no diplomat, so I'm going to say it like it is. Your market is in the US. Sorry, that's where your money goes. Number two, I have nothing to export to Russia. They are buying Russian oil in billions, but what can I export to Russia? It's pathetic. So unless in some way you can readdress this, while I like the argument the previous speaker made, that sounded very nice to my ears, it's a little difficult to implement. However, I agree with what Ambassador Sikri said. The fact that the Prime Minister is there, that itself is a huge message. And that happened after the Wang Yi visit. I mean, I think it's important to link those two things. And the fact that, China is still not ready to share, for example, that huge dam which they're building, they're still not saying that they will share water data with you. They will share data on an emergency basis. So it's not a great thing all the way. But yeah, they are your neighbor. And actually, in fact, if you look at history, China and India have a huge historical legacy. It's huge. And it's very sad if you can't bring that up just because of an...
All right. Just sorry, I'm interrupting you. There's a live pictures coming in of the Myanmar bilateral meeting that's taking place currently. Prime Minister is holding, of course, several bilateral meetings. We saw the bilateral with China earlier this morning. Now it's Myanmar, and tomorrow the important one that we are expecting that's going to be taking place with President Putin as well. So those pictures coming in from Tianjin on the sidelines of the SCO Summit. I'd like to thank all our panelists for joining us. Ashok Sajanar, Tarakarta, as well as Veena Sikri. I'd like to thank you for all joining us. And those pictures, as we mentioned, from Tianjin, that's coming in as far as the Myanmar bilateral meeting that is currently taking place. And those are, of course, some of the important bilateral meetings that are taking place on the sidelines, really, as far as the entire the SCO Summit is concerned. Very significant as far as India-Myanmar relations are concerned, because the issues there that are outstanding in terms of India's borders there, and what really will be the statement coming in from Yangon will be looked at very closely as well.